What is going on YouTube? You are back with the Prez in the home gym, but today's video I'm going to be talking to you guys about a specific topic. You're not going to be seeing any workouts today. Today's video we're going to be going over the difference between high rep training and low rep training, which is better for building muscle. If you guys have been watching the channel for a while now, guys, or even as of lately, you guys would see I'm one who likes to mix my training up from time to time, right? You've seen me work on strict programs for months at a time also, but over the years, I found out to keep fitness enjoyable for myself, I like to just do what I want to do, right? As long as I don't have a specific goal in mind, meaning I'm not training for a competition or something, I like to keep my training and my routines sporadic and random, right? One day where I'm doing high rep training, another day I'm doing low rep training, right? This way I could reap the benefits of all modalities of training and I don't have to get too stuck in a rut of only focusing on one thing at a time. But before we dive into the benefits or the differences between high rep and low rep training for building muscle, first let's classify and set parameters for what I consider to be low rep training and what I consider to be high rep training, right? So low rep training, we're going to classify that. The parameters are going to be anything where sets are lasting between 1 and 8 repetitions, right? We're going to keep an 8 rep max for our low volume work, right? And for high rep training, we can say anywhere from 8 to up to 30 repetitions, right? And even 50, 60 repetitions, depending on the exercise you're doing and the modality of what you're doing that exercise, right? So we're going to classify, like I said, low rep training will be any exercise where you're falling between the 1 and 8 rep mark, and high rep would be anything where you're falling between the 8 and 30 rep mark, right? Now, studies have been done on many different populations of groups, and pretty much all studies, they all have the same conclusion. Both high rep training and low rep training are effective for building muscle, and the participants in the study, pretty much at the end of each study, granted that they were doing their training properly, they all had pretty much sufficient and adequate muscle building between both groups, right? Not one group had an advantage over the other group. Now, in my opinion, what I think is best for muscle building, I'm going to have to go with the low rep training, right? And there's reasons being. The reasons why I prefer to justify low rep training for more hypertrophic benefits is because regardless, if you're doing low rep or high rep, in order to get that muscle building stimulus, the set has to be hard, meaning you have to be getting close to failure, if not to actual muscular failure, in order to produce that hypertrophic response. Now, the caveat with high rep training is it's very hard to actually judge true muscular failure. For instance, let's say I'm doing a set of 30 bodyweight push-ups, right? Now, I know I could do 60, 70 bodyweight push-ups in a clip. So how do I stay in the 30 rep range and make the reps hard enough to come to failure? It's a lot harder to judge failure in a high repetition style of set, right? Because you don't know if you're reaching true muscular failure or if you're just getting fatigued due to the fact that you're doing a lot of repetitions, right? Because a lot of repetitions, it's locally fatiguing to the muscle, but it's also systemically fatiguing cardiovascular-wise, right? So a set of 30 is going to be placing more stress on the cardiovascular system and on the heart than a set of 8, right? Think of it like this, guys. I've used this analogy many times in the past. I got another person standing next to me. We're both elite runners. We're both the best long-distance runners in the world. And it's a training day for us. Me, I say, all right, I'm only going to go on a 10-block run right now. Person B says, I'm going to go on a 20-block run. The 20 blocks, even though we're keeping the same pace, his heart rate's going to get up a little bit higher. He's going to have a little bit more fatigue, overall systemically built up from running 20 blocks as opposed to me running 10 blocks, right? Their legs might be good. Their legs might be able to go, we might be able to run 40 blocks, and the guy who ran 10 blocks can still run another 30. But again, cardiovascular-wise, the guy who ran 20 blocks is a little bit more tired due to the extra mileage put on the body, right? Same thing goes for repetitions, right? When you're weightlifting or if you're doing calisthenics. High repetitions tend to put a little bit more stress on the cardiovascular system as opposed to low repetition training. So the reason why I choose low rep training for being more beneficial for muscle building and muscle growth is because it's a lot easier to determine when you reach muscular failure. Let's give an example, guys. Like I said, we're going to use parameters here, right? So I said anything falling under 8 reps is going to be considered low rep training, and anything falling over 8 reps would be considered high rep training, right? But then that does not mean that if I go on a pull-up bar, and I say, okay, I want to fall into that low rep training, I want to do low volume training for hypertrophy benefits, right? That does not mean I can go up on the bar and do a set of pull-ups. I did 8 reps, low volume, I'm going to produce some muscle growth. Absolutely wrong in that sense, right? Why? That 8 reps was nowhere near failure, right? It was too easy. I could have kept going for 20 plus reps right there. So for instance, for this matter, if I'm going to be doing bodyweight pull-ups, I'm going to get a better hypertrophic response from doing higher volume training, because I know that by the 30 rep clip, by the time I reach 30 reps of pulls, I'm going to be struggling, right? They're going to be tough to meet and complete. So I'm going to be getting very close to that muscular failure by rep 30, right? So good for building hypertrophy, right? Good to stimulate that muscle building signal. The set of 8 right there, not good for building muscle, right? It was too easy. I had way more reps in reserve, or that's what that means, is I have a lot of reps left in the tank to still produce force. So the muscle building signal would be a lot lower there, not a good stimulus. Now, okay, let's do it again. Let's do our pull-ups again, guys. Let's fall low volume training. Let's see how we can make bodyweight pull-ups harder now. So we could create a tempo and make the bodyweight pull-ups harder, so I can start to fail and get closer to muscular failure by that 8 rep mark, right? But still, even for me, I would still probably be able to hit close to 10 to 12 reps in that tempo, so I wouldn't be classifying that as lower volume. Now, if I'm doing weighted pull-ups for that matter, right? Let's just say I strapped on a 35-pound plate right now, and I want to do tempo pull-ups like that. I would 100%, not because I'm forcing myself to fail, I would just naturally fail under that 8 rep mark, especially if I'm working on squeezing at the top, controlling that negative down, creating high degrees of time under tension, high degrees of eccentric loading, pulling back up as soon as I hit that max stretch position. That's going to force my reps naturally to fall in that lower volume of rep ranges, right? So lower volume, in my opinion, it's just a lot easier to find your failure point, meaning muscular-wise, right? Not cardiovascular-wise. Whereas if I'm doing, like, again, if I'm doing a set of, let's just say, ring rows right here, guys. I could keep banging those out for probably another 30 clip, right? Again, do I know that I'm going to muscular failure when I hit the 30 reps, or am I just getting more fatigue built up in my grip strength, my forearms, my lung capacity, right? What's going to be my limiting factor to get 30 reps right there? Is it going to be the muscle failing, or is it going to be more cardiovascular failing, right? Because as you get into longer and longer rep sets, it becomes a mental game as well, right? You might be at rep 30, rep 40 on your push-ups, and you're like, damn, I got to still keep going. I got another 20 more in the tank, right? And that becomes mentally draining. Besides physically draining and physically taxing on the muscles, you're incurring a lot of mileage. Like I said, if person B ran 30 blocks and person A only ran 15 blocks, even though they're both elite runners and they could handle a lot more, person B who ran 30 blocks is going to have a little bit more overall systemic fatigue due to the extra mileage that he ran. Same thing goes for calisthenic reps and sets, right? And me as a calisthenic practitioner for over 10, 15 years right now, I prefer to do high rep training. I prefer to feel after the set, cardiovascular wise, exhausted, right? Because that's the type of training that I enjoy. Don't get me wrong, I also enjoy low rep training. I love to build muscle. I love to go into a set and say, I'm going to get a better stimulus from doing 5 pull-ups as opposed to doing a set of 30. But again, doing the low rep training when it comes to calisthenics and strength work like that, when you're taking the long breaks, you're only really working on that one adaptation process, right? We're just solely focusing on building muscle. And for me, being fit and being well-rounded is more, there's more to it than just looking aesthetic and being a big, muscular person, right? Because if you look at a general bodybuilder, someone who trains in the gym, who goes on stage and competes, they traditionally train in probably the 8 to 15 rep range, right? Traditional higher volumes of reps. But they're using weights, slower tempos, and they're coming to failure almost all the time. But those people, they're not the best athletes, right? You wouldn't see them on the bar doing pull-ups, right? They probably don't do a lot of burpees. They probably don't do a lot of conditioning movements. They probably don't play a lot of sports. If you want to be a well-rounded athlete like myself, I've always found like the higher reps, the high rep training gives you more overall benefits for fitness, cardiovascular health, and again, you can still get the muscle building benefits from it. But it's a lot harder to do, and it causes a little bit overall added stress to the body in terms of systemic fatigue, right? Mileage added to the body when you're doing sets of, like I said, 30 rep dips as opposed to a set of 5 or 6 weighted dips. So low rep training, in my opinion, it's just a lot easier to judge failure. It's a lot easier to get the set in, hit that, 5 to 8 rep range, know that you can't physically hit one more repetition, you rest and you do it again. Great for building muscle. But again, like I said, it's not going to keep you the best, it's not going to give you the best overall athletic performance or the best well-roundedness when it comes to being an overall calisthenic athlete. And like I said, I've always been one to teeter more towards being well-rounded than being a one-trick pony. Remember, I stuck to low rep training for almost 7-8 months when I was training for my 1 rep max competition. I didn't do anything over 6 reps max. Everything was around 4 to 6 rep range, and then as we got stronger and stronger, stayed in that 3 to 5 rep range. My workouts got longer, but my volume got lower and lower, right? So do that math for me, guys. Spending 2 hours in the gym, volume gets lower, right? Whereas now if I bring my volume up, I can spend less time in the gym and get the same benefit, right? And for me, what I prefer is always going to be the high rep, condition style workouts, right? But that's why, like I said in the beginning of the video, you always see me going from a high rep workout to a strength workout, right? I don't like to stick to one thing. I like to get stuck in a rut, right? I like to be well-rounded. I like to work with all different modalities. Is it the best for making you the best at one specific thing, right? If you want to be a calisthenic endurance athlete, it's going to be more beneficial for you to always train in the high rep range, right? Do a lot of supersets, do a lot of, short break types of training, go into the set fatigue, work into your max repetitions, body weight style. And when you want to add weight, don't add as much weight, add sufficient weight so you can still fall in that 10 to 20 rep range. You can still, you can still hit your supersets. You can get that heart rate up. It's great for conditioning. It's going to keep you well-rounded. It's going to keep you ready. And remember, the high rep training, it's going to have a little bit of carryover into low rep training, meaning the more endurance, the more strength endurance you build. So for instance, let's say I can strap on a 25-pound plate and do a 30 rep clip of dips. That does not mean I'm going to be able to strap on 135 pounds of dips from only training for heavy weight and then be able to bang out a 30 rep body weight clip of dips, right? You may not be able to do it because if you don't ever build that cardiovascular system up, cardiovascular wise is going to limit you when it comes to doing high reps. So both play off each other, but high reps will give you a better degree of translation over to low reps. But remember what I said, guys, I'm still going to choose low rep training, low volume training for being more advantageous for building muscle. Because I said, the point of this video was to tell you guys and differentiate which style of training is best for just purely building muscle. I didn't say what's best for making you a better athlete or keeping you more well-rounded. It was solely if your only goal is to be aesthetic and you just want to get bigger and build bigger, stronger muscles, low volume, low rep training where you're staying in, again, in that 1 to 8 rep parameter is going to do you a lot more benefit, right? Because the sets are naturally going to be harder. Now again, like I said, that doesn't mean you can go up to a set and say, okay, 2 reps. I'm going to build muscle right there. No, because the 2 reps have to be hard. If you're only doing 2 reps a set, they should look like this. I'd have to put on 100 pounds right now, and the reps would have to look like this. Okay? So if you're doing 2 reps, the load that you're using has to be heavy enough to make 2 reps hard. If you're doing 8 reps, you're going to have slightly less load, but again, that 8 reps should look like you're grinding it out. That's where you're going to get the most hypertrophic as well as strength benefits from that style of training, guys. And again, for hypertrophy, I would recommend just keeping your break periods. Doesn't matter. I've said this many times. Hypertrophy, think about rep ranges, right? So if your goal is to solely focus on building muscle and you want to do low volume training, pick a load that you're going to fall between 5 and 8 reps in for all 3 sets. Meaning set 1 you might catch 8 reps, set 2 you might catch 6, set 3 you might catch 5. That's perfect. That's a sufficient amount of volume that ensures that you chose a weight that was sufficient enough to hit failure in low volume rep ranges. I can't say anything more about the subject, guys, except you guys got to choose and you guys got to, prioritize what's more important to you at a time. For me, for the most of my career, it's always been to prioritize more of the high rep and the endurance stuff, right? Just because, again, it's always kept me strong. I was always able to be pretty strong in weighted dips. I've always had, decent weighted pull numbers. It was only when I actually specifically trained to get strong in the weighted dip and trained to get strong in the weighted pulls that actually broke my plateaus, right? I hit PR after PR when I trained specifically for it. But again, that's the law of specificity. I was doing a ton of low volume training, a ton of heavy lifting, 3 days a week, and it was very taxing on the nervous system, very taxing on the muscular system, just taxing on the body and the joints as well, right? So again, as soon as I was done with that 7 months of 1 rep max training, I naturally could not wait to get back to the high reps, right? Because again, that's something that I just always enjoy doing more and more. Yes, it's more physically taxing, endurance-wise, but again, you're going to reap more benefits from it. It's going to be harder for you to differentiate if you're coming to true muscular failure or if you're coming to true cardiovascular failure and just mental failure, right, before muscular failure. That's where you guys are going to have to really get in tune with your body and push through those mental toughness blocks, right? When you're repping your push-ups and you're at rep 40 and you said, damn, I just want the set to be over, but you can do another 15 reps. Get those 15 reps in, guys. It's going to be a mental barrier. Your muscle will thank you. You'll still produce the muscle. You'll still produce hypertrophy. Granted that you're coming close, and if not to failure, guys. So I hope this video gave you a little bit of insight of which the best route to take for yourself if your goal is just purely to build muscle. And then again, I gave you just a little bit of parameters. So if you guys want to be well-rounded like I like to be, now you know how to train, guys. You have a question or comment, leave it in the comment section. Always get back to you guys. Like the video. It helps your algorithm out. Share with your friends and your family. And you already know, guys. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. I appreciate all the support. Peace out. BARNATURALS.
They all love to talk, they do that shit the most. Think you on my level, boy, but you ain't even close.